All right, thank you so much. The sights and sounds of Libya returnees there, sharing their experiences in Libya. Well, I did say that we're going to look at the 1 billion US dollars that is causing kind of reaction, counter reactions in the country. About 5 days ago, we understand that governors under the aegis of Governors Forum in Nigeria and also with some members of the Executive Council and also the Economic Council came together and approved a total sum of 1 billion US dollars to try to mop up the insurgency fight against Boko Haram in the northeast. Well, this has reacted, a lot of people have reacted to this. And the thing about it is that some have said that it is not the governors that are supposed to approve that amount, and it is supposed to be the members of the National Assembly. And some have even said that there ought to be a kind of a referendum so as to see whether we can take this money or not. Well, to look at all this today, we're privileged rather to have Dr. Pastor Lugat Sado. The last time he came here, I introduced him as a pastor, but over the weekend, he informed me that he just bagged his doctorate degree. So congratulations one more time.
Thank you very much.
Evans. So Dr. Pastor Lugat Sado is a lecturer with the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, University of Benin, here in Benin State. You're welcome one more time.
Thank you very much.
Let's look at what is going on. So what is your immediate reaction to the story in the first place?
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans, for the privilege to be part of this discussion.
You're welcome.
You'll agree with me that it's a burning issue currently in Nigeria. And my first reaction will be that of shock. And that's because the way and manner the governors and those who approved that money went about it has a lot of suspicion in it. And that's because there was no pre-information or notice. It was not like they've been deliberating on the issue for some time now and then they came up with this conclusion. No, it was just hurriedly arranged and approved, and then we had the misfortune of being informed by our own governor of Edo State.
But this is not the first time we're having such a scenario. I remember the 2.1 billion US dollars during Jonathan's regime. It was also approved by the same Governors Forum and Economic Council.
Exactly the point. That's why I said I received the news with shock. One would expect that in this administration that prides itself in following due process and condemning all forms of sharp practices will not toe any line of such action. So that's why in my first reaction, I'm shocked that this is happening in this dispensation. Now, a second thing is that I'm not so much interested on who approved it or who should approve it. My worry basically is what is the interest of the government? We were told about a year ago that Boko Haram has been defeated and decimated, and that in a few months, as at that time, normalcy will return to the northeastern part of Nigeria. Now, one would have expected that with the establishment of the Northeast Development Council and so much money voted into that commission and a lot of development activities taking place, one would expect that by now, government should not be talking about approving 1 billion US dollars for military mop-up or intervention in the northeastern part of Nigeria, because there are obviously very challenging issues in Nigeria. Now, in the last budget and the current one, well, of course, the one that is still a subject for contention, the 8.6 trillion naira budget for 2018, a lot of money, in fact, the largest chunk of that budget is on defense. And one would expect that that money will be sufficient to deal with any matters arising from defense issue or from military issue. Now, to approve 1 billion US dollars in the very last few days of 2017 as an extra budgetary figure to counter insurgency creates a lot of problem for me.
Yeah, but a while ago, you just said that there are so many other challenging issues. Are we saying the Boko Haram insurgency is not challenging enough?
The Boko Haram insurgency is being politicized. That's why I said the government told us that they have defeated them.
When you say it's politicized, are you saying that it's not real?
No, that's not the point. The point here is that we are not getting the right information or the true information about Boko Haram. You know, government comes, wake up with an idea and sells the idea to Nigerians that this is what Boko Haram is. And then they take a U-turn again and tell us a contrary information again that this is how they are dealt with Boko Haram. They come up with another information and they, you know, they keep pushing us to the left, to center, and to the back. We can't tell exactly the state of Nigeria and the state of Boko Haram the state of the war with Boko Haram in Nigeria.
But don't you think that somehow, let's look at when this administration started, before 2016
yes,
or thereabout. Now, the Boko Haram issue was almost a daily bombing issue and all that in the Northeast. But these days, we hardly hear of that. Is that not a plus to this administration?
No, I won't agree with you that we hardly hear of that.
No, I mean, compared to how it was.
Yes, you see, what is happening now, what's happening now in the northeastern part of Nigeria is even more threatening. That's because what happens currently is that they take us unawares. We hear there is hardly any day or any other day we don't hear of suicide bombing in the northeastern part of Nigeria. It's either policemen are killed or civilians are killed, and sometimes they are not reported. We only see them on the international television. We don't see some of them on local television until some days after or some weeks after we now hear that certain things happened in the northeastern part of Nigeria. So if you ask me, it's true that the Boko Haram people do not have any space anymore where they control, unlike in the past where they had a, where they had a caliphate to themselves. But now they are undergoing, they are using what they refer to as guerrilla warfare. They attack us and they run. They attack and they run. I think that what we need is high level of intelligence. And that's where we need to beef up our communication system. I was watching the Director of Information for Military Defense the last time, and he came up on one of your sister stations with two sets of guns. One was AK-47 and the other one was a magazine. And he was trying to explain to Nigerians the rationale behind the approval of the $1 billion. And my question is, are you going to buy guns with $1 billion US? I tried my phone calculator to multiply it by 306 naira per dollar, and my calculator ran into error. And that means that that's a lot of money.
About 360 billion.
Billion naira. That's a lot of money. And then we do not know what it is meant for. We are just told that it will be used for northeastern parts of Nigeria. But now the National Assembly, who should actually give approval to something like this, and who should also act as a check, such that these monies don't run into voicemails or they don't end in people's pockets, are not carried along. So if the executives by fiat approved $1 billion US for themselves, for the executive to fight Boko Haram, the question is, who will they be accountable to? Okay, how long will this money be used? Yeah. And then, who will be responsible for the disbursement of this money? Okay, we need information.
Beautiful statement now. Now, that brings us to the next question. Don't you think that at this point now, what we should bother about is how to see that, because the money has just been approved, disbursement has not started, but eventually, when it's being disbursed, how to see that this money is thoroughly monitored? Don't you think that should be our concern now?
Yes, but you see, the monitoring of the money should not be brought to the public domain, in my own opinion, because once we bring it to the public domain, we will let out the cats from the bag, and then those who are trying to conquer will have the information that this is the gadget we want to buy, this is the equipment we want to buy, and they have sponsors, like we have always said, and so they will also get equipment and materials that will counter whatever we have afforded or whatever we have bought. So in my opinion, I think that the executive should route this thing through the National Assembly, and I think that there are committees responsible for defense, all the tiers of defense, whether it's in the army, in the navy, or even in the air force. There are committees who should act as checks. And of course, we do know, and I think we need to underline this very well and categorically, that the president must be accountable to Nigerians. And we may want to trust his integrity, in quotes, to expect that he will do the needful. But we can't risk that, because we do know that sometimes he's not always on ground. And so in his absence, several people will act on his behalf, and these monies will not be used for the purpose for which they've been approved. And before you know what is happening, they will ask for another $1 billion US again. And before you know what is happening, they ask for another $1 billion. And of course, because Nigerians won't say anything, and because we will just say our might on social medias and perhaps on mass media, and that ends it all, they will continue to play on our intelligence. I think that a responsible government will not just wake up one day and approve $1 billion, 360 million naira, for crying out loud, for Boko Haram when a National Development Commission has been approved for that region?
Okay.
What then has government been doing with the money approved for defense? In the last budget for 2017, what did they do with the monies for defense?
Okay, as it stands now, the money that we have at the account there is about 1.37 billion US dollars, because the chairman of the Governors Forum, Governor Abdulaziz Yari of Zamfara State, actually gave an account that the balance there now is about 1.37 billion US dollars. Anyway, but the Vice President has also come out. It's on paper, one of the papers this morning, that Nigerians really need to understand the narratives. That this money we are talking about now is really not just for arms, for guns and all that. You have people that are still displaced in the Northeast. They need to be settled. You have people that need to go to school in the Northeast. Probably were in school, in education in the Northeast as a result of the Boko Haram insurgency, they were displaced. So don't you think that these are the issues that is kind of, making this money to come forward this time?
You see, what the Vice President is trying to do is to launder the already battered image that came up as a result of this approval.
Yeah, but these are facts.
No.
Are these facts or not?
We cannot say they are facts. That is coming from the Vice President does not mean that these are facts. The point here is that he is a politician.
No, from your point of view,
from my own point of view.
Are we saying that they are not?
As at the time the governors met, and then Governor Baseki also announced their decision to us, it was said categorically for military intervention, for defense in the northeastern part of Nigeria. He did not by any chance say that it included education or housing or providing roads or whatever. He didn't say that.
Yeah, but maybe we also need to be, told on it too. So that's what the Vice President may have said.
My governor is is a very respectable man, and he won't say what doesn't exist. And if he was given the responsibility to announce the decision of that council to Nigerians, I'm sure he announced it exactly as was approved. Of course, the reactions from Nigerians may have necessitated the action of Mr. Vice President to provide certain explanations. Of course, that will help them to cushion the effect and to make Nigerians understand that, okay, we're not buying AK-47 with this money. We are not only going to buy jets with this money. We want to use it to rehabilitate the people. We want to use it. That becomes a welfare thing, which makes a lot of sense, in my own opinion. I mean, there's nothing wrong in trying to return people back to their homes, bring them back to school, provide them with basic social amenities for them to be able to live their normal lives in their places of origin. I think that is excellent. But you see, ab initio, the government should have explained this in total. And perhaps give us a breakdown to say, okay, out of this $1 billion US, 500 million US dollars will be used for military formation and intervention. $200 million will be used for the establishment or re-establishment of closed down schools. $100 million will be used for housing project and whatever. And then Nigerians will have, a snapshot of what government is intending to do. And of course, that will give us some peace to say, okay, this government has good intent. And of course, they should be supported. But to just say ab initio that this money is for defense, and then we do know that what we find amongst our soldiers, amongst our military men, are just AK-47 in today's world, where people now use sophisticated weapons, long-range weapons to counter insurgency. We still want our soldiers to get very close to these insurgencies before they can take them unawares. That explains perhaps the casualties, the increase in casualties in our military formations that we have been having since the outcome of Boko Haram in Nigeria. So government should think well, act well, research effectively before they come out to the public to tell us their decisions.
Okay, now the SS crude accounts we are talking about, remember the Sovereign Wealth Fund that was established sometime in 2004. And as at then, Nigeria had about 5.1 billion US dollars. Then somewhere around in 2008, it rose to about 20 billion US dollars. Now, just about 5 days ago, we are told that with this approval now, it's going to reduce to 1.37 billion US dollars. Now, what do you think has been the issue? Is it that our government don't just have this ability to manage, funds, especially as it relates to the SS crude accounts?
You see, that's why I hope that Mr. President or his aides are listening to us. I think that he should be very wary of the governors. He should be very careful of them in going to the SS crude account. You will recall that the same governors that pushed President Jonathan to release monies from this SS crude account to them because they felt this money belongs to all of us, were the same governors who turned around and began to accuse him for spending the money,
what is
for wasting
of the
money.
SS crude account?
Now, I think that is a savings account. Wow. It is for the rainy day.
So how come for the rainy day?
Yes, it's for the rainy day, and it should be for developments. It should be for improvement in the conditions of living of Nigerians. It should be for the establishment of institutions and strengthening institutions that will help to support our objective and our goal as a nation. Now, if you ask me, I mean, as individuals, we all have savings. I know that there is recession, but no matter how bad it is, if you want to break through in life, you must save some amount of your income to be able to make some plans and you know, do some projections. I think that the SS crude account, it was established to, you know, to mop up certain amounts of money that came up as a result of
surplus.
Yes, budgetary surplus, and then keep them in a safe place pending when it will be needed, because there may be times where the income, the projected income, will not be achieved, and then you need to make it up. You go to the SS crude account after passing through the normal due process, and then you bring some part of that money to make up whatever you want to do, and then you engage in such projects to improve the lives of Nigerians. Now, let's put it in perspective. We have been crying over several issues in Nigeria, health, for instance, and one would have thought that government may, if government means well to improve the health status of Nigerians, government would go to that account and mobilize some funds to support health infrastructure. But government has never done that. We've been crying about education, for instance. We have been told that Nigerian graduates are not employable and that several things are wrong with the Nigerian educational system from primary down to university. It has never been done by any government to mop up money from that SS crude account to support education. I mean, these are instances. Of course, our roads are death traps. According to the United Nations, Nigeria is the unsafest place in the world to drive, and that more Nigerians die from road traffic accidents than Nigerians who die as a result of HIV annually.
That may not be true.
No, I mean,
that Nigeria is the unsafest place.
Yes, it is. But I mean, by global statistics. No, you see, when we hear certain information about us, it should push us into
but let
activity.
us not digress.
No, I am not. I'm trying to arrive at a point.
Yeah.
Now, in spite of all these alarming and disturbing statistics, we've never heard that government wants to mobilize some funds, whether from SS crude or anywhere, to support this aspect of the economy or this sector of the Nigerian society. No, but we always hear that government wants to use certain amounts of money for defense. Now, Mr. Evans, you will agree with me that the defense has become, you know, an access road for maximization of Nigerian monies by politicians.
Yeah, but we must. Yeah, let's go. But you must also give it to the politicians.
No, not exactly, because you know, Nigerians don't talk about this. Let's talk about the security votes, for instance, that each of the governors and the presidents and even the local government chairmen have on a monthly basis. What do they do with such monies? It is not accounted for. It is not somebody just wakes up tomorrow and then buys some vans and then some torchlight and hands them over to the security formations, and he says that he has supported security. Now, Nigerians will need to start asking questions. What's Mr. President doing with his security votes? What are the 36 governors? Let's even forget the 36 governors. The 6 or 7 governors in the northeastern part of Nigeria. What are they doing with their security votes? This money comes to them on a monthly basis, and they are budgeted for every year. What are they doing with such monies? We need to ask questions before you now say, let's go to our reserve. The reserve that is for our commonwealth. These monies should support our children's children in the years to come, and it should not be spent now. Any government that goes into savings for no meaningful purpose is risking the future and the posterity of the unborn Nigerians, and Nigerians should condemn that very clear and straight.
Okay. All right, the program is still this morning on ITV, on independent television, and our focus today is looking at approval of the $1 billion US, talking about the fight against insurgency in the Northeast. And Dr. Logat Sado is here with us on the program, and we are expecting Giver Bajimo, who ought to be with us here on this same topic this morning. Now, Doctor, let's look at some of the reactions. Ekiti State Government's governor, rather, has reacted, and of course, it was on paper this morning that about 16 local government chairmen in the state has sued the federal government, on that account. Now, why the River State governor has, somehow reacted in such a way that, okay, even if the federal government has to make such approval, the governors have to make such approval that they should not forget the derivative components. I think he was also talking about some of the states, that are supposed to be part of all this. Now, if, whoever approves such amount now say, okay, the derivative components, you take your own. Now, what do you now think is going to be, what kind of legacy is this going to leave for us? Don't you think that tomorrow it may come up, that such an approval will come up, then once there's reaction, okay, government will say, okay, the derivative components, this is part of your own?
That's exactly what I said when we started, that government doesn't think through its process. Government just wakes up with an idea and throws it on Nigerians and expect that we will swallow it, whether it is a bitter pill or not. I think that the reactions are normal. In a democratic system, people will not just keep quiet and allow things to go the way it's going.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't want to talk about the derivation issue because, I mean, the problem of Nigeria has always been that of resource control and resource allocation. But I think that whatever decision the government has taken or government wants to take, especially for future purposes, I think that the government should think it through, should invite all stakeholders, deliberate on all of this, and then before they take their decisions. I think that's where I want to leave it. Whoever wants to sue the federal government has the liberty to do so. And if they have sued them, it is the responsibility of the federal government to defend themselves and respond appropriately.
All right, this is where we're going to anchor. Thank you so much, Doctor, for finding time to come on the program today. We'll take a short pause. Stay tuned.